August 1944. High over northern France, the sky was a pale metallic gray. Thin clouds smeared like fingerprints over a sheet of steel. The steady drone of 4 Wright Cyclone engines pulsed through the cold air, their rhythm unbroken, the kind of sound that drilled itself into the skull until it became part of one's heartbeat. Inside the tail section of a B-17 flying fortress, named Iron Duchess, Sergeant Raymond Cole sat hunched behind his twin .50 caliber Brownings. His gloved hands rested on the grips, fingers twitching with muscle memory. The air inside his compartment was freezing, thin, laced with the burnt tang of gun oil and cordite from the morning's test fire. They had been in the air for 2 hours. The bomb run was over. Now came the worst part, the return. German fighters knew that the crippled stragglers would trail behind, easy pickings for the waiting Messerschmitts. The radio crackled with static and clipped voices. "Bandits at 10 o'clock high," came the warning. Cole's stomach tightened. He had seen what those words could mean. He peered through the narrow perspex window, searching the horizon. The sun glared off the glass, blinding him, so he shifted slightly, using the small mirror he had rigged days ago. It was no ordinary mirror. It was half of a cracked shaving glass he had taken from the barracks, fixed on a swivel with a piece of wire and chewing gum. It gave him a wider field, letting him track motion in his blind spots. His crew laughed when he built it. They called it Ray's crazy contraption. But Cole had spent weeks studying attack angles, timing bursts, and watching gun camera films of Luftwaffe passes. He knew the fighters always came from the blind zone just below the tail, where sunlight could trick a man's eyes. The interphone hissed again. "Ray, you seeing anything?" "Not yet," he replied, voice steady though his throat was dry. He adjusted the mirror slightly, eyes flicking between reflection and glass. Then he saw it, a flash of silver, fast and low, slicing through the clouds. His pulse jumped. "Focke-Wulf, 6 o'clock, low. Closing fast." The fortress shuddered as the first cannon shells tore past. Cole swung the guns down, tracers streaking like red needles through the gray. He fired short, controlled bursts, feeling the vibration crawl through his arms. The mirror let him anticipate the fighter's climb. He shifted aim half a second before the German pilot expected it. The first burst missed. The second grazed a wing. The third hit square. Fuel vapor erupted in a faint, smoky bloom. The pilot of Iron Duchess called back, "Nice shooting, Ray!" But Cole barely heard him. His eyes stayed on the mirror, on that small, improvised piece of glass that had just given him another life. More dots appeared in the distance. The Luftwaffe was not done. The real test was only beginning. The sky had turned to smoke and sunlight. The first fighter burned away in a thin spiral of black, but its death only drew others closer. Cole's mirror shook with every vibration of the guns, reflecting brief flashes of sunlight and the pale, furious faces of approaching Messerschmitts. Through the headset, he heard the navigator shouting headings, the pilot barking course corrections, the bombardier swearing softly under his breath. It was all distant noise to Cole. His world had narrowed to the tail compartment, the humming guns, and the small piece of glass that showed death coming from every angle. 2 more German fighters appeared on the port side, their wings glinting. They moved with cruel precision, darting in and out of cloud cover, using the sun as a shield. Cole had studied them. He knew their patterns like the back of his hands. He angled his mirror, catching a faint reflection of one climbing for a high pass. The old rule said wait for visual confirmation, but Ray Cole had learned better. The mirror told him everything. He fired early, predicting the angle. The fighter flew straight into his line of fire. The tracer rounds walked across its fuselage and into the engine. The plane folded in on itself and vanished behind a thin sheet of fog. The fortress shook violently. The intercom filled with static. "We've got 1 engine hit," shouted the pilot. "Feathering number 3. Cole held his breath, listening to the uneven hum of the remaining engines. The vibration was rougher now. The sound of the wind clawing at the fuselage felt closer, hungrier. He looked down at the mirror again. He could see his own eyes staring back at him, wide, rimmed with exhaustion, the skin around them coated in frost. Outside, contrails twisted and looped, the sky turning into a battlefield of ghosts. He could see the rest of the formation ahead, black dots surrounded by vapor trails, each plane fighting its own invisible war. The oxygen mask pressed hard against his face, his breath fogging the glass. He blinked, sweat and frost mixing on his lashes. Then another reflection flickered in the mirror, small, fast, closing. He swung the guns without hesitation and opened fire. Tracers cut across the gray sky, a fiery arc of defiance. The German Dove then broke off, smoke trailing from its wingtip. Ray, that was close. The co-pilot yelled. "You all right back there?" Cole's voice was steady. "Still here." He adjusted the mirror again, a tiny movement that might have meant everything. The mirror was cracked down the middle now, one half vibrating loose. He pressed it back with his glove, smearing a streak of oil across the glass. It did not matter. Even half broken, it worked. Minutes passed, maybe seconds. Time lost meaning. The gun barrels smoked, and the air reeked of metal and fear. He could feel the fortress losing altitude, the engines straining. Yet through the trembling mirror he saw the impossible, a patch of calm sky opening ahead, the enemy fading behind. The radio buzzed again. "We're clear for now," the pilot said. Cole leaned back, hands trembling for the first time, the mirror still catching the last flash of sunlight before it dulled into gray. They flew in silence for nearly 20 minutes, limping through the cold layers of cloud. The world outside the windows had turned ghost white, the kind of endless nothing that could make a man forget which way was up. Inside, the air vibrated with the groan of engines straining for life. Oil pressure fluctuated. The left wing shuddered every few seconds, coughing thin trails of smoke that curled into the mist. In the tail, Cole checked his ammunition belt and reloaded one of the guns with the last can of rounds. His fingers were stiff, nearly numb, the gloves soaked through with sweat and cold. He wiped the frost from his goggles, feeling the raw sting of air that smelled faintly of fuel and ozone. Through the intercom came the pilot's voice, low but controlled. "We're crossing the line. Just hold her steady, boys." No one answered. They all knew what that meant, crossing out of German airspace into friendly skies, or what was left of them. Cole exhaled slowly, letting his shoulders relax. Then the mirror shifted slightly from its bracket, catching the dull reflection of something far behind them. He leaned closer. For a second he thought it was a shadow. Then it moved. A lone fighter, small against the distance, growing larger with every heartbeat. It was not a Messerschmitt this time. The shape was sleeker, the nose pointed differently. Cole recognized it instantly, and WWII, one of the Luftwaffe's deadliest. His hands went cold again. The mirror trembled as the vibration intensified. He called it in. "Tail gunner to pilot, one more bandit coming fast, low 6 o'clock. "Copy, Ray, hang on back there." The voice was calm, but the edge of fear was there too. The fortress banked slightly, trying to bring the top turret into play. The German pilot was good. He stayed in the blind zone, the same one that had claimed half of Cole's friends over the past year. But now Ray had his mirror, cracked and shaky though it was. He tilted it, finding the reflection of the 190 weaving through the haze. The angle was perfect. He waited, counting seconds. The fighter came in for the kill, cannon flashes blinking like tiny suns. Cole squeezed the triggers. The guns thundered to life, brass casings pouring out like rain. His tracers met the fighter mid-pass. One round clipped the tail, another hit near the engine. The 190 rolled hard, trying to shake the hits, but the dive came too late. It plunged into the clouds, trailing smoke. Cole could not see it hit, but he did not need to. He just stared into the mirror, the crack down the center glowing faintly with reflected light. Silence again. Only the steady hum of engines and the soft buzz of the radio. Someone finally spoke. "That's 3 today, Ray. You're making us look good." He did not answer. He just looked at that piece of glass, the thing everyone had laughed at, and felt something shift inside him. Not pride, not relief, but the quiet realization that his small invention had kept them alive. Outside, the clouds began to thin, sunlight breaking through in patches of gold and gray. The fortress pressed on, wounded but alive, toward the coast. By the time the English coastline appeared, the Iron Duchess was barely holding together. The sun hung low, a pale coin behind streaks of mist, washing the world in dull silver. The crew sat in silence, each man alone with his thoughts. The intercom had gone quiet except for the occasional crackle of static. Somewhere behind the thin aluminum skin, oil leaked in slow, steady drops. The engines coughed and moaned like tired beasts. The bomber was flying on faith now, faith in metal, in luck, and in the steady hands of men who refused to die. In the tail compartment, Ray Cole still watched the mirror. The crack running through it had spread wider, splitting his reflection into two uneven halves. One side looked older, hollowed out by exhaustion. The other stared back with the same steady calm he had carried since takeoff. He thought about the morning, how the ground crew had laughed when he tied that broken piece of glass onto the mount. They had said it looked ridiculous that no one could hit a fighter using a mirror. But now 3 German pilots would never laugh again, and his crew was still alive. The pilot's voice broke through the static. "We're crossing the channel. Keep your eyes peeled, just in case." Cole smiled faintly beneath his oxygen mask. He had no rounds left, only an empty belt rattling with the rhythm of the engines. Still, he kept the guns pointed aft. Habit, duty. The fortress dipped lower. The gray sea glimmering below, white caps cutting through the water like shattered glass. He looked through the mirror one last time. Instead of fighters, he saw the faint outline of Spitfires escorting them home, their wingtips flashing in salute. The relief hit hard, almost painful. His shoulders sagged as the tension drained from his body. He had not realized how long he had been clenching his jaw. The intercom filled with laughter, weary and cracked, but real. For the first time in hours, the sound did not feel like noise. It felt like life. Minutes later, they crossed the coastline. Green fields rolled beneath the haze, dotted with airstrips and winding roads. The pilot's voice came again, softer this time. "Prepare for landing." Cole's eyes burned from the cold air, or maybe from something else. He reached out and gently unhooked the mirror. The wire snapped, the gum crumbled, but he caught the glass before it fell. It was warm from his touch. He slipped it into his pocket, not as a trophy, but as proof that sometimes the smallest idea could change everything. When the wheels finally touched the runway, the plane groaned but stayed upright. Fire trucks and medics rushed forward, their lights flashing through the mist. Cole waited until the engines shut down before standing. His legs shook, more from relief than fatigue. He looked out the small window one last time. The sky was quiet now, only the distant hum of other bombers returning. That night, he sat on a wooden crate beside the hangar, the mirror in his hand, the air still thick with the smell of oil and sea wind. Someone handed him a cup of coffee. He stared at his reflection in the cracked glass and whispered, almost to himself, that maybe it was not luck that kept them alive. Maybe it was the will to see what others could not. Somewhere in the darkness, a siren wailed and then faded into silence, and the world seemed to exhale at last.